Man, oh man, football might be heating up, but we're still talking some hoops. Is UCLA going to get a visit from a top 25 recruit coming soon? Maybe. And then what was the struggles of Berke's recruitment? Even arguably harder than Mars. Talk about it on Locked On UCLA.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen every day. It's your team every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast on audio platforms and on YouTube. So like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for your support. Become an everydayer because everyday listeners get more awesome listening. I don't know. It is what it is. All right, let's get right to it here on Locked On UCLA. Talking some hoops to start things off. I know Spain's coming around the corner. We'll talk about that coming up. But initially, the news coming out of 24/7 Sports is that UCLA is going to get a visit, potentially not in the next month, but in the next month or two during more of the fall months, from a top recruit in the class of 2025, getting an unofficial visit, taking a visit to two separate schools in SoCal, UCLA, and NC. Whatever. And then, so that guy is none other than Isaiah Harwell, a guy who the Bruins actually offered back in June of last year. He is someone who is a top recruit in the states of Utah. And what makes him fascinating is, remember, I believe the top recruit of the class of 25, Cooper Flagg, has reclassified to the class of 24. And that means everything and then some, that there's going to be a new pecking order for who's going to go after the class of 25 recruits. If you remember in Section 7, those tournaments and those Orange County, SoCal tournaments, that Section 7 tournament in Arizona during the summer when the basketball coaches like Mick Cronin and such could go out and talk to recruits, they're looking a lot in 25 at Koa Pete. And while they did get some looks at Eric Freeney eventually committed. He was a 24 recruit. He committed during the summer before UCLA even finished getting all their signees for 23 and finished out their coaching staff. They were looking at Koa Pete, but they're going to get a visit from Isaiah Harwell, who's about a top 10, top 8, depending on what site you use, recruit. And it's interesting because it's going to go UCLA as the unofficial visits, but we'll see what that means considering Flagg reclassified. And while he doesn't necessarily have his eyes, Flagg did on UCLA, Harwell, who was quoted, I believe, reading the Tar Heels Wire, in October as UNC via Harwell was his dream school. You wonder if UCLA can make that distinction, that change, a 5-star shooting guard. And while the Bruins do have a logjam of players coming in, a lot of youngsters, how many are going to stay from year 1 to year 2? If Sebastian Mack is truly dominating as much, is he going to be good for 1 to 2 years? Who's going to be that shooting guard? Is it V-Day? Whoever is going to win the 2 spot this year? Will they stay another year? And whoever doesn't win it will play next year. Does that even leave anything open for Harwell to come to UCLA? I'm not sure, but considering he is now moving his way up the rankings with the Flagg reclassification, it'll be interesting to see how UCLA goes after him. It's only an unofficial. They've had an offer out for a year. And I think the true look is at Koa Pete, who Mick Cronin was looking at back during the early parts of the summer when he was out recruiting in Arizona. But kind of bringing things back into the recruiting class for this year and why they might go after more domestic recruits is sometimes the headaches, right? The headaches it can be to go after the international recruits that Mick Cronin's brought in. He's got the new director of international recruiting, which replaced Ivo Simovic in his international recruiting. You have Nate Georgeton, who replaced Simovic on the staff as an assistant coach that can go recruit overseas. But it was interesting. I saw some pieces written about Berke's recruitment by the 24/7 Sports, the Bro site, and Tracy Pearson talking about how Berke was actually recruited way back when in 2022. They were trying to get him for the 2022 class. Remember, last year they got all sorts of different guys. They were trying to get another Turkish product. They're trying to get Buyuktuncel. And they had a lot of different players coming in late. They had upwards of nearly 3 international recruits, one who's already dipped down. They had one who didn't get in. And now Buyuktuncel, which according to this article written, was saying it was a long train running. They tried to get him last year for 2022, had him committed in the late summer of 2022, didn't get past UCLA admissions, according to the report, but kept going, even though he was still interested, played for his Turkish pro team, Tofaş. The Bruins kept recruiting him, maintained his interest. I remember reading an article from Buyuktuncel where he was talking about how he actually had different offers out there from different programs and eventually still maintained his interest in UCLA. He said that, I've talked about this in a podcast about a few months ago, when he was that hidden mystery recruit the Bruins are going after to round out this class, the 7th freshman, the 4th international in terms of the freshman class coming directly over from Turkey. So he also had to deal with his set of struggles. I know Mara had to deal with the headaches of leaving the likes of his contract with his team and some bitter resentment there. But for Berke, his struggles was, hey, getting admitted, coming in, finding ways to still, if you wanted to leave his team and then come to UCLA. So you had multiple things, multiple hurdles to go through after not getting in. Most guys, if they don't get in, if they don't like it, you can look at like a Marcus Adams Jr. I don't want to really dog on him, but he was at Kansas for a couple months after reclassifying. He's already transferred to Gonzaga, right? You've got different guys who go to different places and they don't last that long. You have guys who go to a certain spot and declassify and then they go to the G League. So the fact that they brought in Berke after that year-long circle, you could arguably call it a circus, if you will, that working hard to get the academics up, those are the types of guys Cronin wants. They already know the academic rigors of bringing someone into UCLA. Then to go on with the basketball legacy that it is in Westwood at Pauley Pavilion, you've got to bring in guys who are willing to work. And that's the type of guys, the grittiness, the tenacity on and off the court that Mick Cronin's going after. Someone who is, even after a year of getting denied and finding his way, having to step up and pass the English proficiency exam at UCLA, which I think was the biggest thing, which is going to be maybe the biggest difference, all this different cultural backgrounds, trying to gel this team together, different players, different ideas, and different overall tools that Mick Cronin can use. How are they going to bring this team together? But if you got a full group of work hard, grind it out type players with the focus on the team and winning, or at least growing as a team, that's why the Spain trip is so important for development and growth, that even though Berke is not expected to go, nor Mara and Bonus hurt, so he won't go, that's why the team can grow so much. And we'll see how players like Berke, maybe it's a Feeble, maybe it's a Avide, Mac, the two Williams, the non-related Williams, the sophomores coming back to be leaders, even Bona trying to be back and be a leader, and he's bounced around coming over, right? From Nigeria to Turkey and then coming over, right? So you've got all these guys that you hope can gel together, work it out, grind it out, which is why this team is so tough to figure out. There's been different bracketologies. They've had UCLA as a 7 seed, various preseason, way too early top 25 polls that have UCLA in, out of the top 25, depending on who's more optimistic and who's trying to maybe gauge how good UCLA will be next year. The Bruins might not be a top 25 team to start the season, but they could be a team that goes deep in the tournament, or they could get a lot of hype early and falter late. It's a team that we don't know, has a lot of upside, a lot of excitement generating, but they work as hard as Berke did. If they're finding recruits that have that level of commitment, maybe like Freeney will be in a year when he's already committed in the class of 24. If all these guys have this level of commitment, and they probably have, they just haven't come to surface, at least not to now, then this team will be in for a good year. And think about it. Jaime Jaquez Jr. is this guy's UCLA's comparison, and Jaquez had to grind it out. He wasn't necessarily ready for prime time, year one, but now 4 years later, 4 seasons later, went through COVID, helped the team get to 3 straight tournaments, a Final Four, was the conference player of the year, and then he goes to become a first-round NBA draft pick. And now you've got Berke, who's a similar grinder, you hope, on and off the court, that can help lead with all these other guys to become a good team this year. So I thought that was interesting to see the toughness, not just on the court, which he's been talked about as a fiery defensive player, but for the youngster to come in and be one of those guys Cronin and UCLA is looking for, to be not just the one and dones, but the guys who can grow and become a good team. How are they going to do that? They're going to go to Spain, and that's on August 20th through the 30th. They're going to head to Spain, and the Bruins recently released what this Spain trip is going to look like. So we're going to talk about it when we come up next on Locked On UCLA. So maybe you're sitting there at home and you're wondering, all right, do you have to choose between better hair growth or your health and your health? Maybe you have to choose between one or the other, right? Nutrafol provides a whole body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair. No drugs, no compromises, just better hair. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. All you have to do is go to Nutrafol.com/men to take their health wellness quiz and identify causes of thinning hair. Nutrafol will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through your whole body wellness. All you have to do is take the first step for a limited time for thicker and healthier hair. Nutrafol is offering listeners $10 off your first month subscription, free shipping. Go to Nutrafol.com/men. Enter the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Find out why 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men. Enter the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Welcome back to the Locked On UCLA podcast. Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer with you guys. And overall, the Bruins getting ready for a big trip. It's from the 20th of August to the 30th of August. And I believe the three players we're not expecting, Bona hurt, not going to be there. Berke and Mara, they won't be available, barring some last-minute thing that we haven't heard about just yet. So it leaves a slew of newcomers, some non-scholarship players, and a couple of returning quote-unquote veterans, other than the old grandfather of the group, if you will, jokes aside, and Kenneth Nuba, the redshirt senior who's been around for a while. It's going to be a very young roster heading over to Spain. So now we have an idea, details about what the games are, who they're playing, when they're playing, and the timing of it, and what they're going to be doing. So some of the cool things that this team is actually going to be able to do out in Spain, beyond just the basketball and everything. So they're going to arrive in Madrid Monday, August 21st, and their first game will be Tuesday, August 22nd. But the rest of the thing is what they're going to do for sightseeing excursions. When they're in Madrid, they'll be visiting Toledo. They'll see Madrid's Royal Palace. When they're in Valencia, they'll go to the Oceanographic Valencia, the largest aquarium in Europe. I'm not sure if you're an aquarium fan. I like them. I've been growing into zoos, everything. It's fun to see different aquariums, especially all across the world. And when they're in Barcelona, they're going to go to the Basilica de la Sagrada Familia. Say that 10 times fast. I don't think I can. And the Gothic Quarter and Las Ramblas. So they'll see all those things. If you've been to Spain, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you've not been to Spain like me, then you probably don't know, other than aquariums and different awesome sightseeing opportunities to bring this team together. Mick Cronin said, quote, "This trip to Spain comes at a great time for our program. We have brought in some talented young players this summer. Spending time together in Spain can really help our guys grow. We're excited about this trip, and it'll give our young man a chance to see a different part of the world. I hope that the teams we're facing will provide us a really good opportunity to improve from a basketball standpoint. We're a little less than 3 months from starting our season, and we have plenty of room for teaching, development, and growth." That is an end quote. So he is expecting a lot of growth on and off the court. Kind of like I talked about with Berke, had to go through that year-long process of improving and growing and figuring things out. Maybe not necessarily overall, but just trying to grow and find a way to get into UCLA despite having other opportunities. This whole team has to grow and figure out how to see the court the same way, how to find ways to gel as a team. This is the biggest opportunity when they play the 3 games, Tuesday, August 22nd, 7 p.m. in Spain, in Madrid against the Madrid All-Stars. So it's 2 professional teams and an All-Star team. They start with the All-Star team. So it's 7 p.m. in Spain, 9 hours ahead in Spain is the difference between there and LA in the Pacific time zone currently. So that game, if my math serves me correctly, will be at 10 a.m. August 22nd. So a little less than a week away from the recording of this podcast, and they'll be playing the Madrid All-Stars. Just a couple days later, they play in Valencia against Valencia Basket, 8 p.m. in Spain, 11 a.m. here Pacific time. And then they got a few days to kind of relax, go to Girona, Spain, play Girona CB, 6:45 in Spain. If I can do my math correctly, I believe it's 9:45 a.m. here in Los Angeles on Tuesday, August 29th. So those are the big things that the Bruins are going to have. They're going to play all these games, and hopefully, even with 3 games, there can be so much growth. And while we don't get to see Mara and all those guys fully be the twin posts, we'll see how it all gels in the backcourt. Maybe different front court options that gives the domestic, the U.S. players an opportunity to shine, like Devin and Brandon Williams, and all these guys opportunities to show when we wait to see how the latest signees fit in later with Bona and then Mara and Berke. All those things can really generate a fun, thriving atmosphere, I think, for this team, because this is a tough team to pinpoint. We don't know where they're going to be. We don't know how they're going to gel over the year. The schedule is tough in the beginning, but what does that mean moving forward for a team that's so young? They could be a team. I'm not sure if NCAA has ever had this. They could start a team that's all 5 international players, right? All 5 international players, with Lazar Stefanovic coming over from Utah as a transfer. They could have 5 direct international players. Technically, if you had Bona in there, you could have so many guys directly you could have all starting 5 international guys. I'm not sure if that's ever happened in college basketball, at least at the D1 level, as high as where UCLA is. Interesting, right? How this team is going to figure out how to play together in a different team from last year, and that nobody truly knows how to pinpoint them. Not even rankings, not even sites, not even preseason polls, bracketology experts like Joe Lenardi. It's all over the place. I'm excited. There's a lot of room for growth and upside, but this team, we won't know what it looks like until they hit the court for the first time, unofficially, officially in Spain. So we'll be excited for all of that. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the state of college basketball. I recently had a discussion with Andy Patton of Locked On College Basketball. So this is a bit of a teaser segment, if you will, coming up, where comparing Chip Kelly's ideas of when does college football break away, become independent of conferences, and how the non-revenue sports, they stay and they can be more geographically located. Where does college basketball fit in there? And I went on a rant, and I kind of going to do a little bit of a teaser as say, hey, go check out Locked On College Basketball on August 17th is when the episode drops. And that's where I do a couple of segments with Andy Patton. But I'm going to give a little teaser and something here for our Locked On UCLA listeners in just a moment. Welcome back to the Locked On UCLA podcast. Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer with you guys, wrapping things up here today. What is the state of college basketball, right? There's so many different things that are going around in college basketball. We're seeing a lot of guys, a lot of teams, Kentucky, even Gonzaga, UCLA, leading the charge, just to name a few of teams that are recruiting this late in the recruiting cycle before the season even starts and are going after international guys. This game has gone completely global. If the NBA didn't say it already, right, with the Lukas, the Jokic's, and all the other players I'm just going to forget right now that are international, or just the way that the international game is growing, Giannis, right, just so many different great players all across the world now. And now they're not just going directly to the NBA, they're coming to college to play for a year, one and done, or two, and develop and become those dominant forces. And even if they're not the best players in the NBA, there's players that are now dominating college basketball, right? From the Shibways and the Edis and just different players all across. We hope UCLA, just of the few of them, get a couple of hidden gems that come out and dominate from this freshman recruiting class. So what we're seeing is this changing landscape in college basketball, that it's not just to your own backyard, but for UCLA, McCornan's already noted, well, our recruiting hub, our base, is still in Southern California. They're still going to go and make sure they get the best kids out of Los Angeles if there's available, or if there's someone in Arizona, maybe Utah. If they think there's someone across the country they like that's a 5-star, they'll go after it. They probably like guys who can grind it out, someone who like a Jaquez or even a Tiger Campbell, but more of a Jaquez locally, that he's going to be there for a couple years. Those guys that won't complain when they don't play right away. You need those 5-star super talented guys. And then now they've gone after international guys that can fit the billing, right? You have so many openings. The Bruins arguably either swung and missed or didn't like guys who are choosing to go to other schools other than UCLA, like the Stojakovic's. Adams Jr. decided not to go there. There's many guys you can choose. Even Collier decided not to go to UCLA. He went to USC. Not that that was really one of the options, but Collier choosing USC over UCLA, the top recruit in the class of 23. But then they go after the international recruits, like we're seeing all these other schools go after, as opposed to maybe exclusively hitting the portal. It's all right, get a couple of domestic recruits, get a transfer, and now an international superstar or two, maybe three, like UCLA has gone all the way up to 4 in just the freshman class alone. So that's just an initial state of the change in college basketball. But now kind of going back to this teaser, right? Chip Kelly, interesting man. He wasn't necessarily a man for many words or quotes, but he's been given a lot of fun ones the last year. Last summer, he talked about the idea of NIL and how schools aren't doing it right, and how it, what he's learned coaching wise, conditioning wise. This year, while they always like to go to the other schools, Chip Kelly's been giving us a good lot of tidbits in the LA Times and various outlets about how, hey, maybe conference realignment isn't what we should be focusing on. College football, with the money and all those, should be split. And with more and more schools like the Florida States trying to leave the ACC, maybe Clemson going to do the same thing too. Who knows? All rumors and sources, but rumors and sources and everything has become so crazy nowadays. The Pac-12 is left with 4 teams in 2024, which isn't UCLA's concern now that they're moving to the Big Ten with SC, Oregon, and Washington. The 4 corner schools are going to the Big 12. You've got everything in between. But how is that going to look for the other sports? And that's been the big thing. UCLA's put in a year's worth of research, still with a year to go, a little less than a year. Mostly the same thing for USC. How are they going to make all these teams travel better? Is it going to be helped with better travel in the future due to technology? Is it more recovery? Is it more mental health, more exports, more people traveling with the team? Or is there a way where we can just negate this and think about, hey, what's going on, right? There's the non-revenue sports that Chip Kelly was trying to talk about. College football, you can split up into 64 top teams, the next level of 64 teams, and have 2 championships, and then also do it more geographically to make it a little easier for football, while the other sports can also have something different, right, as opposed to they can stay geographic. But college basketball is so interesting because they play 2 to 3 games. Not like the other sports don't. They do. But they're equally a money-making sport, so should they go the way of college football and as it's going to be with conference realignment, can they go play consistently UCLA across the country every week? I know there's one thing for it to be the NBA, but these players are still balancing things as student athletes, NIL deals. They're still balancing a personal life, training, preparation, recovery on top of practice and a game, in addition to all the other stresses in life, right, that we've started to note about. Is college basketball with that revenue sport. They're in between college football and the likes of the other sports. Does the Power 5 schools, do these other schools, do they break off and become their own thing? Do we go back to geographic things, right? Do they break off? And they've been teasing expanding the NCAA tournament. They've been teasing having bigger schools break away and play for their own championship. But the difference between college football and college basketball is the magic, for better or for worse, pros and cons there, is that March Madness is the beauty and also the downfall, which lovingly kind of takes away from the regular season as much as we love college basketball's regular season. Compared to college football's regular season, I'm not sure if the two compare, even though I love them both very, very close in equal regard. March Madness is one of the most beautiful times, arguably the best time in all of sports. So that's what kind of holds it, right? The Cinderella is holding it together. The upsets, the Fairleigh Dickinsons knocking off Purdue, the UMBCs knocking off Virginia, only Virginia's next door to go be a championship team, UCLA to be a first 4 team to go all the way to the Final Four in a year where nobody knew what was going on, right? Moment after moment. And if you break away, if college basketball goes this way, like Chip Kelly talked about, right, where if they have a top 64, another tier, and like the lower schools, right? Because there's so many more teams that play college basketball than play college football, especially at the D1 level, as opposed to the FBS, FCS, and then you have the middle group of 5. And I know in basketball, you've got these Power 5, Power 6 conferences, the really good mid-majors, technically Gonzaga, right? You've got, the Houstons that are floating, all these other schools that are kind of these weird hybrids that are about to be, or maybe in the future, power conference schools. And then you've got the real mid-majors circling at the bottom that love for their one moment in March to go upset these teams when they're not expecting it, like the Big Ten teams, like the Purdue's and everything in between. Where are we going to draw the line? Basketball is in a unique spot because they need the Cinderellas. In college football, there's not too many Cinderellas. I know TCU was one of sorts, right? Getting to the final only to get demolished by Georgia in SoFi in early January of 2023. The state of basketball is interesting. I don't think we need to expand the tournament. I think maybe we might swing back in years to go back more geographic for closer, more local rivalries. Maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe we just keep pushing further and further and further away from what we had in the past, old local rivalries and everything in between, and in terms of conferences. I'm not sure how that'll swing, but I don't think the tournament should expand. They should not go to a 3-tier system, a 2-tier tournament system. I think the tournament is as beautiful as it's going to get. Still imperfect in some ways, but beautiful as it's going to get. And I think the state of college athletics is growing and hurting based on the greed, the NIL, good things, player name, image, and likeness and all that. But then the TV deals, it's making for an interesting time to be UCLA fans, right? Moving from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. And while there'll be a lot of bucket list items as we have to wait for the revised 24 football schedule, there's still going to be a different, unique sadness once the Bruins move away from all these old rivals, right? No Cal, no Stanford. It will even miss the Arizona schools and the Colorado and Utahs for a decade and all that. But in the end, is it going to be better or is it going to be worse for the game? I don't know. But college basketball, it'll be interesting to see how conference realignment affects the travel, affects these teams, especially the teams that have to travel further, right? Like the UCLAs, the SCs, all these other schools that have to go across the country consistently. Will they be tired and grinded to their gears, to the very bone by the time March comes around? I don't know. Or they have figured it out and travel will become a lot easier. That's the hope, but we'll see. That's all it today for Locked On UCLA. I'm Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer signing off. You want to become an everydayer because you might hear rants like this. Go check out Locked On College Basketball because I join Andy Patton. We talk more about UCLA basketball, including this somewhat similar topic, and we get excited for that anyway. So Bruins fans, hands up, 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fight, fight, fights. This has been Locked On UCLA. Go Bruins.